Hello everyone, this is Jotto and welcome to Versus Series, where a member of my team, Ace Breakers, faces off against a well-known or up-and-coming pro player. Now, for this week, I'm going to be playing against Gameking. Yes, I am going to be playing on Versus Series. This is a weird situation for me. I never play on these things, it's always been my teammates. But for once, it was a bit of a weird set of circumstances, and I just thought, you know what, I'll play. And this week, I actually played against Gameking from Lucky Draw. Lucky Draw always has an interesting set of players, and I like to get them on Versus Series every so often. So we've had Wishsame, Timbolt, Moon, and now Gameking from that team. They're an awesome bunch of guys, all German, I think. And really, really fun to hang out with, so I keep bringing them on the show, and they're pretty entertaining to watch as well. But anyway, before we start, Gameking ended up banning Hunter, and I banned Rogue. I banned Rogue because I'm running Priest, and I felt fairly confident with Priest against Hunter, and also my Shaman is okay against Hunter. So I was running those two classes, and I didn't expect either to be banned, so I just went ahead and banned the Rogue. So anyway, moving on to decks. Now, the deck over there is in fact the exact deck, card for card, that I did on the weekly show with Spiffy. I actually brought Spiffy onto the show. He talked about his own deck that he made and he got legend with last season. So I'll put an annotation somewhere over there or down there or somewhere if you want to go see the full deck tech. So as a result, I'm not really going to go over this. Go watch that video if you want the full thing from Spiffy himself, and go have fun watching that thing. As I said, I'll put an annotation somewhere and also put a link below. Now, as for Gameking's opening deck, now this was something which I was completely expecting. If you don't ban Hunter, they usually open with it. Now, this is not a standard Hunter list. There's a lot of interesting stuff in here. The first thing to note is that there's a lot of one-offs, so many of them. One freezing, one snake, not 3 traps, only 2 with 2 eagle horn bows. Then there's a one-of Ironbeak, which can be very situational but very powerful in certain situations. One of Houndmaster, because they clog a bit sometimes, especially if you're a bit low on the low drop beasts. One Unleash, no Knife Jugglers, but one Unleash. Unleash can actually be really good, especially in the mirror match. Unleash is very good in the mirror. It's also really good against things like Shaman and Zoo, and you often need it. It kind of functions a bit like Snake Trap, but you can use it when you're behind, not just when you're ahead. As for the other one-offs, he split the Sludge Belcher 2-of down the middle. Sludge Belcher to be aggro decks, Stranglethorn Tiger to be control decks. Very interesting different setup here. Haven't really seen this many one-offs in a Hunter deck before, but it does give him a bit of a toolbox type way of playing. It also means that in a show match, so for Versus Series, if he wins the first game, then it's very difficult to figure out what he actually has because you won't have seen a lot of the one-offs in the deck. So you can bring out some completely different cards in the second game and just surprise you. So very, very interesting deck to bring along, and we'll have to see how it goes. Now onto the mulligans. I would say, on my part, I think I send back possibly everything. I may keep the Flame Tongue. And as for the Hunter, yeah, you keep that curve. That's a very, very good curve. You don't want to really send any of that back. Now, I ended up sending back the Flame Tongue because I really want Lightning Bolt. That's basically the way I ended up doing that. I really want Lightning Bolt and Zombie Chow in this particular matchup. Now, this curve coming out of Gameking is very good. Leopronome, Mad Scientist, Animal Companion. Straight amazing as far as openings goes. However, I do have a very strong opening as well. Now, I'm going to go ahead and attack the Mad Scientist here, I think, because the reason for doing this is he gets a secret, but I have an easy way of popping the secret at the moment. And also, if I kill the Leopronome instead, he can use the 2-2 to kill the Haunted Creeper, and then maybe unleash the Hounds, and then I'm really far behind. Alright, so rolls Animal Companion, a swing and a miss as far as the Animal Companion is concerned there. Now, where's he going to send this Leopronome? I think you actually want to go ahead and kill the Zombie Chow. I think you want to kill the Zombie Chow. Going for face is a bit risky here. If you kill the Zombie Chow, it means that your Leok is safe. Although you do have that secret. So this is where this gets a bit awkward for me. Feral Spirits is okay. The problem is with Feral Spirits is that Unleash the Hounds wrecks you. And also if he could have Eagle Horn Bow. So what I'm going to end up doing here is going for the Storm. So I go ahead and trigger that, try and go for the Storm roll. The reason I attack with the Creeper is because if it's Freezing Trap, I don't have a guaranteed way of actually attacking that Leok and killing it with bad rolls. So the roll goes against me, but I can still deal with it, and 2 Spectral Spiders is actually fairly okay for me. So you see a bit of a bad follow-up there as he almost ran out of resources. Now, this next play has a few different ones that could be done. There's Totem or Coin Feral. Now, Coin Feral leaves me with 3 mana next turn. So what I'm going to do here is go for the Totem, knowing that I'm going to have enough on the board for Defender of Argus, so I can just go for that instead. It also gives me Coin Black Knight as an out to something like Animal Companion, for example. Now, I think there's 2 plays here, Defender of Argus or Feral Totem. I think Feral Totem is better here. It is a bit weak to Unleash, however, what this does do is it means that I can save my Defender and I can also keep my Spell Power Totem alive. Now, the big game hunter in my hand is very, very good against Houndmaster here, and he ends up top decking Houndmaster. This was quite a funny situation. Playing this game, I talked to Gameking after the series, and he was incredibly surprised to see this big game hunter. So what he ends up doing here is actually putting the Houndmaster on the 5/3, which seems completely okay, but big game hunter, which is incredibly awkward. So he puts out the Mad Scientist, and he goes for the taunt, which makes sense, but big game hunter. It's just so silly. This is an incredible turn. I can big game hunter at the 7/5, Earth Shock the 2/2, so he doesn't even get a secret out of it, and then just trade off the Spider and the 2/3. Now, I don't want to trade off the 1/1 because if I trade off the 1/1, it increases the chances, well, it decreases the chances of me getting a good totem, which is Taunt or Healing. Mostly Taunt, but Healing is also pretty good. Now, I think you just slam Loatheb here. Loatheb and Lepronome. Do you Lepronome? That's a good question. I think you just Hero Power. Yeah, that makes sense. Mana Tide Totem. 7 mana. So I think the play here is actually to play Defender, trade with the big game hunter, and then play Mana Tide and just start drawing through my deck. Now, note the positioning on the Mana Tide. I could have put it on the other side, but I want that side to be where all the fodder totems go, so I can use it with Flame Tongue if I top deck it. That's one of the main things with Shaman. This particular deck benefits from it a lot, because double Haunted Creeper and things like that. So it's very, very important. Now, I would not be surprised if there is a Ironbeak Owl on this 1/3 and then a kill command on the 0/3. Or maybe even just silence the 0/3. Underestimating the Mana Tide, maybe. Mana Tide Totem is really, really good. Just in general. Very, very good draw engine, especially if you get 1 card out of it, it's fine. If your opponent has to invest into it, if you get more than 1 card, it's crazy. Now, I was going to play Fire Elemental Totem, so I just Totemed first, because that's what you should be doing. Healing Totem was very good for me here, and I continue to draw cards. So at this point, the only way I can really lose is if he gets a whole bunch of burst damage. So he's going for face here. Now this is where it gets interesting, because I'm trying to think, what can I possibly lose to? And so what I'm going to end up doing here is I roll and thinking, oh, it's not taunt. So end up just hexing my own guy here just to stop the bow. And going for the lower third on top of this. Finally using the coin, full board, which is a bit sketchy against Unleash the Hounds, but if he unleashes, it costs 8 mana, so he basically skips his turn. Although Unleash would deal lethal, I think. Unleash would end up dealing 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Yeah, Unleash was lethal there. But not much you can really do about that. He doesn't end up getting it though, so this is basically game over. I do have the lightning bolt for lethal. He ends up taking me down to 4. I would have died if I hadn't played Loetheb there. But yeah, Unleash the Hounds was lethal in that situation. However, Loetheb ends up stopping the Animal Companion kill command, so he can't actually kill me, and that ends up winning me the game. Loetheb, very good card. As that's lethal in multiple ways. Flame Tongue, and just swing in for the 6. So anyway, first game, kind of normal for Shaman versus Hunter. Shaman versus Hunter is kind of weird. The Hunter's the aggressor. The Shaman has to stabilize, and if they stabilize at a high enough life total, I stabilized at 15, then they can actually just swing back the game with much bigger minions. And it's not a good matchup for the Shaman by any means, but it's okay. There's some very good cards in the matchup on the Shaman's end of things. It really does depend on the Eaglehorn Bow. If they get Eaglehorn Bow for the Ferals, it's a lot better. If they don't, it's really miserable. So anyway, Gameking has switched into a deck he has called Double Brawl. Now, at this point, I know his third class, which is Warlock, and if he brings in the Warrior, I'm expecting it's because the last one is Handlock, or it could be Zoo and he just doesn't trust it. So he doesn't want to trust Zoo with winning 2 games in a row, and he doesn't want to bring in Handlock against it, so he brought in the Warrior. Now this particular Warrior is playing a Big Game Hunter, a 1 Spellbreaker. That's an interesting tech card there. Helps a lot against things like Nerubian Egg, Haunted Creeper, Houndmaster, things like that. Very good in the mirror match as well. Dies to Axe, but it also just silences one of the key engines in the deck, like Acolyte of Pain. Faceless Manipulator is kind of a pseudo extra legendary here. And as for the late game package, instead of Alexstrasza, there's a Ysera. Now, this is much better against Priest. Can't just Shadow Word Death it. It's much better against a lot of classes actually. It's better against Druid as well, they can't really kill it. Against Shaman, I'd say it's worse because it doesn't do anything immediately. The cards it gives you are not that backbreaking apart from Ysera Awakens. And it's very slow and can get hexed. So I think it's pretty bad in this particular matchup. However, the card overall is definitely an okay one. And I think while I prefer Alexstrasza, it's definitely better in some situations. The most interesting thing about this deck though is the second Brawl. Now, Brawl in general is very good against Swarm decks. And the second Brawl in here kind of leads me to look at this deck as kind of having answers to everything, being very slow, very reactive. So there's 2 Brawls. There's a Big Game Hunter, Spellbreaker, Faceless. This deck is very reactive. There isn't that many proactive threats in this deck. There's only the mid to late game. And there's not really that many aggressive starts you can do at all with this particular deck. There's so many reactive cards. Very control-y deck, almost pure control as far as Warrior is concerned. So, onto the mulligans, and this is a full send-back on both players' parts. He's debating keeping the Brawl because it's Shaman, but I don't think you can keep a 5-drop in your opening hand. So, as for opening hands, Haunted Creeper is an okay start here. Earthshock is quite useful against things like Acolyte of Pain. And on the other side of things, there's a Spellbreaker, then Axe comes off the top here. I think you probably want to axe this 1/2, and then you can axe the other one and play Acolyte of Pain, and then you're good. I mean, you do take, what, 1, 2, 3, 4 damage from a Haunted Creeper, but damage doesn't really matter in this matchup. I'm not playing Burst Shaman, which he may not know. He may, like, from his point of view, I may just have not drawn any of them, so it doesn't really matter. But in this case, I'm actually not playing the burst combos at all. Now here comes the Acolyte, and this is going to get promptly Earthshocked. The question is, does he swing in? I think you do because you have Death's Bite. You also have Coin Belcher, though, as an out, so you don't need to. This is an interesting play here. He doesn't decide to. He doesn't want to waste it on a 1-1. That's completely fair enough. Now, the two plays here are Defender of Argus, Earthshock, and Totem. So I can Earthshock here. I was kind of hoping for Spell Power there, because then I'd only have to use one of my 1-1s. But this is fine. I trade off Haunted Creeper, effectively, and an Earthshock for Axe and Acolyte. He got a little bit of extra value there. But the rest of my deck is 1-for-1s or 2-for-1s against Warrior, so I'm feeling fairly okay as far as matchups go. Now, he's got a couple of options here from bad to worse, I'd say. I'd almost coin Sludge Belcher here. He's going to use the Axe, which means he probably wants to set up a Death's Bite or maybe just put out Armorsmith. Yeah, he's going to put out the Armorsmith here. That makes sense. So in this case, Armorsmith is bad against Sludge Belcher. So I think Sludge Belcher is the play here, or Zombie Chow Defender. Sludge Belcher, and I want to attack him because if I attack the Armorsmith, then he gains extra armor. Now, this is a bit of a weird one because in theory he could go armor up, attack goes up to 4 armor, and then shield slam. But then I kill his Armorsmith anyway. I just don't want to get a flat shield slam immediately. Because he'd have 2 more armor, so he just armors up and shield slams, and he has a 1-3 instead of a 1-1. So Spellbreaker comes down here. Spellbreaker is practically useless for him right now. It's kind of amusing. So I'm going to Fire Elemental this. Yeah, I almost made that mistake. Almost. Kill the Armorsmith first. Now, I kill the Armorsmith first here because I know that he has Shield Slam in the deck, so he can armor up Shield Slam. But I don't see it as much of a problem because he hasn't played any shield blocks yet, so he could just shield block Shield Slam, and he also doesn't have that many shield sort of Shield Slam targets in this, and I can chip away at his armor at a later date. If he wants to, I've already taken out a Spellbreaker with this. If he wants to 2-for-1 himself, then I'm fine with it. I mean, he has no choice, basically. So this is a weird play that ends up working very well. Big Game Hunter and Cruel Taskmaster. That is an incredibly good combo. That is something you wouldn't really expect, but you can actually use to great effect against 6 or even 5 attack minions. Now, this play is interesting. I can play Zombie Chow and then Defender. And I take out the Big Game Hunter here. The reason for it is because if I take out the 2-2, then he takes out my Zombie Chow, and I have a 4-3 as opposed to a 3-4. But he does have the Death's Bite, so he's just going to flat clear these. Although I'm not sure how bad that is from my end of things. The Death's Bite is annoying, that's for sure. It's definitely one of the better cards in the matchup. Has an inbuilt Whirlwind and kills 2 different things. But as far as card advantage goes, we're pretty much both on exactly the same playing field. And while this thing is out, I think I'm just going to keep toteming, wither down his armor a bit. He's down to 0 armor. And just keep getting card advantage from my totems. I do have Flame Tongue on the cards here, literally. So I can just play the Flame Tongue and deal with anything he can put out. So he ends up top decking the Cairn. So going for the Cairn makes sense here. However, I do have the perfect answer to this Cairn in Flame Tongue, Earthshock. Don't really want to use a Hex here. However, Flame Tongue, Earthshock is a very, very good answer to this. I could go for the Storm. This is interesting. I think going for Flame Tongue is better here because it keeps it on the board and it's something he has to deal with. Now, if you notice the sequencing, I went for it this way because I wanted a higher chance of getting Spell Power Totem again. Well, technically I've got a higher chance of getting Searing Totem. Getting Spell Power Totem or Taunt Totem is worth the risk. Healing Totem's not fantastic. I'd rather have something that protects my own stuff. Now, Sludge Belcher is the reason why Black Knight is played in this deck, but it's kind of amusing because there's multiple of them. Now we'll have to see what I end up doing here. I think Black Knight and then just kill one of them is fine. I ended up rolling Totem there first just to see what I'm dealing with. Healing would have been nice, but Spell Power is also fine. So I'm just going to go ahead and deal with one of the Belchers, basically for free. And he does, however, have those shield slams, so he's going to go ahead and use them now. Now, I think actually playing Black Knight is better here. Black Knight, the 2-1, and then use the Sludge Belcher to kill the 0-3, I think is the correct play here. Leaves me with very little on the board. Quite an explosive turn from his point of view. He is quite far behind on cards, but he does have a quality board right now. Which leaves me in a weird situation. I think the correct play here is actually Feral Spirits and Feral Spirits, Totem, Defender, and put the Defender in between the two Spirits so you can't kill it with a Sludge Belcher. And then next turn I can maybe set up a Storm. Storm is really bad in this matchup, so getting any value out of it is good. Oh, as we see Ysera come off the top here, so I think you just slam the Ysera here. I do have the answer to it, but you still want to just slam it down. Now, this Lightning Storm is absolutely brutal. Laughing Sister, not the best card he could have got there, probably the worst actually. So, Hex the Ysera, roll for Totem, and then just Storm. Now, the reason I end up doing that way is because I want to keep the stuff on the board, whereas if I attack the other way, I lose my Defender. Healing Totem again would have been the best one there, but you make do with what you get. Alright, Loatheb coming down here. Loatheb is actually fairly manageable for me in this situation. I can just go ahead and Lightning Bolt it and then use Searing Totem and then clear out the Laughing Sister. I can also Totem. Now, Sludge Belcher is actually pretty bad against Loatheb. I could, however, play and then kill the Loatheb with minions instead. So I roll Totem, see what I get, and the way I wanted to play that was if I get Taunt Totem, then I just go for the Lightning Bolt play, and if I don't get Taunt Totem, then I go for the Sludge Belcher. But in this situation, get the Taunt Totem. Taunt Totem basically negates this 1-4. It's kind of amusing. As we're both really low on resources, but he has nothing to do right now. Absolutely nothing. He's out of threats. He doesn't have any minions he can play at all. And, oh, the Drake. Drake is so much better than Sludge Belcher here. He can't attack it, and it's just annoying. Healing Totem is also incredibly good here. It basically negates anything he can do with the Armorsmith whatsoever, because it only attacks for 1. So we'll have to see what he does with this. Now, I think the correct play here is Ragnaros, and possibly Shield Slam the 4-4. I think I would. You don't want that 4-4 on the board. But you have to play the Rag. If you don't play the Rag, then you're never going to have another opportunity to play it. So you're going to have to go ahead and play this Ragnaros while you still have the opportunity. Now, this Big Game Hunter is becoming almost MVP, 2 games in a row, actually killing 2 very, very powerful threats that were very difficult to deal with. Now, Ragnaros being Ragnaros against Shamans completely hits a totem like it always does. So at this point, this is when the long and laborious kill the armor starts. Now, this happens in quite a few matches where Shaman, the burst Shamans, are not fantastic against Warrior a lot of the time because they cannot get rid of a lot of this stuff. However, as you see a Brawl here, and I think he just has to go for it. However, when it comes to actually dealing with Control Shamans are quite good against Warrior in general. Now, Haunted Creeper ends up coming out here, which was just funny because it was probably the one thing I didn't want to see at all. Because if you think about it, if it was anything else apart from Armor Smith, then I keep a minion and I get 2 1/1s, which actually increases the rate at which I can take out this armor. This massive armor total. Oh, as we see, top deck brawls 2 turns in a row. So I'm just going to go ahead and keep attacking here. Ragnaros. Now, this was interesting, and I was thinking, yeah, I want to slam the Rag here. I do end up toteming, thinking that there's probably no way he does have Brawl. But nope, he does in fact have that second Brawl. But another way of looking at this from my perspective is the only thing I'm really losing in this Brawl is Ragnaros. If it hits anything else, then I do keep a 1-1, 2 1-1s and a 1-2. So I've got a fairly decent chance of getting something okay here. I end up getting Taunt Totem, which is arguably the worst, although it does stop any charges from coming down. But that's his second Brawl. He doesn't have another one. He could have some Whirlwinds, but he doesn't have another Brawl. So I can just go to town with my massive board stay at this point. This is a very, very difficult situation to come out here. Now, I'm looking at my deck here because I know I have a second Fire Elemental and a second Azure Drake. I think I also have a second Sludge Belcher. And also a Loatheb. So I've still got some pretty good threats left in my deck. See, Grommash coming down here just as a way of applying pressure, because there's no way he's getting through any of this. Gnomish Inventor, very, very good card right now. Just going to go ahead and play that. And then Hex and probably Totem. I can use Feral Spirits to refill the board if needed. Now, I rolled Totem there. I wanted to see if I could get Lightning Bolt, because if I can Lightning Bolt this thing instead, so that would be 4 + 4, 8, which would be exact damage to kill it, and I'd be fine with doing that. Absolutely fine with doing that. Oh, shield block off the top. Into a Sylvanas. Now, Sylvanas is very irritating here. Not that many ways of dealing with it. What I can do, however, is just sack off the 2 good minions on my board. And then, yeah, attack with the 1-1s first. See what he steals. If he steals a 1-1, it doesn't matter. Taunt Totem is the most annoying here. However, I can just refill the board with Azure Drake and just Totem up and maybe even Feral. I don't think I need to, though. As I'm in an extremely good situation right now. This Acolyte of Pain comes down, which is very annoying. I actually was considering, when I saw this Acolyte, just killing it with 3 1-1s since he'll fatigue himself. And I thought the only way I can lose this game is if he has a big hand and a lot of resources, even if it's only for a short time. So I'd rather just slowly kill him out as he draws through his deck naturally. So Flame Tongue can come down here, get some extra damage out of these guys, start chipping away at his armor, and then just slam Loatheb and play Totem. Now, I end up putting Loatheb on the wrong side here. Should have put Loatheb on the other side of the Flame Tongue next to the 3-1. This is double execute. That's the Death Spite. Arguably the best card left in his deck. He does have to think where to hit, though. The Azure Drake and the Flame Tongue deal exactly the same amount of damage, but Azure Drake has spell power attached to it. So he kind of has to take out the Azure Drake here. Lightning Bolt hits for 5 right now, which would flat kill a Faceless Loatheb, which, by the way, I think he has to do. Faceless has next to no targets left in the entire deck. He's already burned through all 3 of his major win conditions, and also Sylvanas and Karen. Now, this is the awkward Mana Tide, and I'm never going to play this. There is no point in playing Mana Tide at this late in the game. I'm already in a situation where I'm just 1-for-1ing him, and he's almost out of cards. I don't want to accelerate my own fatigue. Now, what he can do with that top deck is Faceless, and then Cruel Task Execute, or just execute both, actually. He can execute both and then Cruel Task a 1-1. The problem is if he does that, he has no answer to Fire Elemental. And there's still a Fire Elemental in my deck, but then there's also still a... there's just Fire Elemental, and I think that might be it. There may be an Azure Drake, I've been counting. There's definitely a Fire Elemental in my deck, though. So I think Execute and maybe double Execute is necessary here. You definitely want to Faceless and then Execute. Alright, so he's going for the double Execute and Cruel Taskmaster on the... Cruel Taskmaster on the 0-1, I'd say. Alright, no, he's armoring up instead. That may be a mistake, because I can just Lightning Bolt this if he's been counting cards. Yeah, Lightning Storm is the second to last card. So this Feral Spirits is practically impossible to deal with. The last card in his deck is a War Axe? Is it a Fiery War Axe? Yeah, it is. Thought so. Hadn't seen a second one yet. The problem is that this Cruel Taskmaster is completely impossible to play. He had to play it last turn. There's no way of him ever playing a Cruel Task again. But unfortunately for my opponent here, Fire Elemental is the last card in the deck, which is the reason this game lasted so long. Because Fire Elemental would have probably killed him a couple of turns ago. So yeah, he just concedes as soon as he sees the Fire Elemental. There's no way out of that at all. So that game was incredibly long. That was a 25-minute game or something, or maybe 20 minutes. And it went to fatigue. But I ended up going 2-0 up with this particular Shaman deck. And Gameking brings in his Warlock, which is in fact a Zoo. So we are finishing the series with Zoo. Now this particular Zoo build is running one Loatheb instead of double Dark Iron, and apart from that, the other interesting thing in here is double Ironbeak Owl. I've never seen two. I've seen one. I have never seen two though. Very interesting to see double Ironbeak Owl and also the Loatheb Dark Iron as opposed to double Dark Iron. So moving on to the mulligans for game 3. I think as far as Zoo goes, you send back the egg and keep the rest. As far as I'm concerned, I'm thinking, what do I keep? What do I send back? Because it could be Handlock. That's why I'm thinking of keeping this particular Hex. I think I end up sending it back in the end because it's more likely to be Zoo. So I end up sending it back knowing that it's more likely to be Zoo. Now this opening hand for me is very good if I get a Lightning Storm at some point. If I get a Lightning Storm at some point, then this hand is very difficult to beat. Extremely difficult to beat. Knife Juggler, okay. Now there's a couple plays I could do here. Lightning Bolt and then next turn Coin Feral is one of them. I end up going for the Creeper. The reason for this is because next turn I can go Feral, Coin, Bolt. And if he ends up killing the Haunted Creeper, then that's fine. I can use the Haunted Creeper to attack back at it. I can also just Bolt it. And he ends up going for this Void Walker, and it goes to the face. And I think the other one you should play here is probably Nerubian Egg. Play a Nerubian Egg. You have an Enabler in your hand. There's no reason to hold on to it. And I get ridiculous Knife Juggler luck there. You see the sorry. So Feral Spirits comes down here, and I think I'm just going to go ahead and bolt this 1-3 so that I can use one of my 1-1s to kill this Knife Juggler. So at the moment I'm in a decent position. I don't have any answers to things like Dark Iron Dwarf. If I played Dark Iron, I think I'd be in a pretty bad situation right now. He doesn't have Dark Iron though. He instead has not Dark Iron, Direwolf. He goes for the Flame Imp there. Flame Imp actually just flat kills one of these 2-3s. So next turn I have Sludge Poacher, which I'm completely fine with. Still no Storms. The Storms are coming back to hurt me a bit here. Oh, Abusive Sergeant is very good here. He can go Abusive Direwolf and just kill this 2-3, and then I'm in a really bad spot. And he hits the 1-1. And gets to sack his egg. That is horrible. It actually makes the Sludge Belcher practically useless, because he just kills it, so... Awkwardly enough, I think planning ahead here, I'm going to have to Hex this 4-4. Especially with the second one. I've got a couple options here. I can either go Azure Drake, and try and dig for a storm, I can go Sludge Belcher, which doesn't kill anything. Or I can Hex this 5/4 and try and get a storm off my next 2 draws, and if I don't, I lose. So I end up going for the Hex after all that. But no Lightning Storm yet. If I don't get one in the next couple of turns, I think I'm just dead. Yeah, straight up Loatheb, Undertaker. That's pretty much game. I'm taking what, 6, 9, 10 damage here, and then he has lethal on board. So yeah, lethal on board with 6, 9, 10, 15 plus 2 knife juggler triggers, which you could very easily get, or just any direct. So if I go for Azure Drake and he goes face, it doesn't matter if I get Storm, so I've got to block as much damage as possible, so I end up going for the Sludge Belcher. But, alright, let's see. Nerubian Egg and Haunted Creeper. So you just use the Loatheb and the 3/1 to kill, or maybe even just the Direwolf, actually. No, because then you have a big board and you actually can't really go in much here. Okay, so he saves damage by doing it this way. Yeah, you get the knife juggler triggers, you can save some damage. Get some extra here. It also means that your Loatheb hits slightly harder because of the Direwolf. Slight mistake on the placing though, you could get an extra damage there if you put them on the other side of that Undertaker. But yeah, no storms, so that's game. Hex the Loatheb and concede. So anyway, final score was 2-1. First game was pretty stereotypical actually as far as Shaman versus Hunter goes. Defensive Shaman, offensive Hunter. Shaman stabilizes at a high enough life total, they win. If they stabilize at a low life total, they lose because they get burnt out. Now, the second game was a very, very, very good Shaman versus Warrior. Control Shaman, I mean. Burst Shaman versus Warrior plays out very differently because you're trying to get him down to about 20 life, which is very difficult sometimes, and just kill him straight up in one turn. But Control Shaman versus Control Warrior really is a sort of smooth control mirror that ends up with just answering threats with different control cards in the right order, and whoever gets the last threat wins the game, as was evident as I had Feral Spirits and Fire Elemental and he didn't have an answer to it. So he ended up dying to the last couple of extra things that I could throw at him. Funnily enough, it's actually Shield Block that makes that bad for him, because I'm running 1 pure draw card, which is Mana Tide, and he's running 2. So he was 1 threat less, which is kind of funny if you think about it. But yeah, that's how that ended up. Now, the last game was Zoo. We've seen Zoo. That ended up with a very, very good, what was it, turn 4, I think? Turn 4 was incredible with a Loatheb follow-up, and it was just game over pretty much from there. Swing for lethal in the next 2 turns. Just straight up, can't come back from that. No storms, didn't make the situation better, but it was also a very, very good couple of turns, which I don't think you could have really come back from. Maybe with a storm or 2, it would have been fine. Maybe with like 1 storm on turn 4, I think I could have come back there. But it was a really, really hard game after turn 4. And that was evident when I died on turn 6 or something. But anyway, thank you for watching. If you like the content, please subscribe. If you have any feedback, put it in the comment section below. As I said, I will put the deck tech to the deck I was playing, Spiffy Shaman, in the description. And there was also an annotation at some point in the video. As for the next weekly, I am going to be doing a Getting Better as a Hearthstone Player series. Unless there are spoilers at BlizzCon. If there's card spoilers at BlizzCon, I am doing a weekly with that, and I'll drag a teammate on with me. But if there aren't, I'm going to start a new series with that. And if there is, I'm going to do some spoilery stuff. So by all means, look forward to that. But as for now, this has been Jotto, signing off.